Yes. Oh, I can hear
Hello. How's it going, everyone? We're live, I hope. Hey, how's it going? I'm Vanessa Guerrero, your host of Full Screen Attacks movie podcast, where we're basically just giving you G4 staff picks for the video store that is streaming services these days. Joining me today are my esteemed guests, fellow king of content, Kasim G. I'm sorry I hit you with a tortilla yesterday.
Thank you for saying exactly what I told you to say.
Yeah, that you're king of content.
That's right. Thank you. It's forced upon everyone.
All of the things. And joining me, longtime friend and incredible writer for Honest Trailers, Danielle Radford, everybody.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here sincerely, because this is an episode I've been kind of excited about, because when it comes to like the entire spectrum of movies, I like just about everything.
Right.
But both of you know that fantasy as a genre, and we're doing it because, you know, Lord of the Rings is coming out this month, House of Dragons just dropped, and it's dawning on me how much fantasy has always been a gap of mine, and it was willful, and I am now making amends.
Well, see, that's where I was for a long time with horror, where that was like a gap for me, until I became like a full-on horror baby.
Yeah. And Cass, I know you had like a similar experience with it.
I think, you know, for a long time, I swore off fantasy if it had dragons, swords, or magic in it. I was like, not for me.
Horses and bells, I'm out.
But as soon as I started opening up to it, and I've also realized that as a kid, as my pick today, I've been a fan of fantasy.
Yeah.
I just like, you know, maybe turned an eye to certain parts of it. And so I'm excited to get into it today. I'm happy with the subject.
No, I'm literally, no one yell at me. So,
do you have a literally problem?
I have a literally problem, but also what I'm about to say, because I know someone's going to yell at me. So there are a lot of fantasy gaps that I've missed out on. Like, I saw Princess Bride for the first time at the beginning of the pandemic and realized that I had been completely wrong the entire time, and it was fantastic and great. And I feel like maybe my blinders on fantasy were because I was giving it the very strict definition that limits it, which is Middle Ages, horse's sword, and not the broader thing, which is it's speculative fiction.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. So I haven't seen Lord of the Rings. Any of them.
Okay. Let's just wait. Let's hang on that.
And no one yell at me. I haven't seen
go ahead and let her have it.
Any of the Lord of the Rings. And I see somebody asking a story in the end, asking would Green Knight be in the fantasy category? And I say yes, because it's so based on like Gawain and the Green Knight and the archetypes that are so endemic to fantasy. And I loved it so much that I realized I was not giving any of these things a chance. And last night, my husband was like, I beg you to sit through the first 90 minutes of the first movie so we can get to the dinner bell thing that you want, which is a big fight scene for the two towers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would suggest, don't start with the director's cuts.
You're the third person to tell me that this week.
It's intimidating. Just watch the regular films and then go back and watch the director's cuts. Do not start with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you will want to go back once you get through.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, because there's so much that you miss so much stuff. And I know I'm like you. It took me a while to get into Lord of the Rings. I did see them in the theater, but it never like hooked me until I think like I just had some time alone by myself at home. And I'm like, I'm not feeling judged. I'm going to sit down and enjoy it. And they are fantastic movies. They deserve it of all the Oscars and all the praise that they received.
Like, I think I only know Elijah Wood as just like sweet little weirdo taking on indie projects. And I don't actually know him as Frodo.
Yeah.
And he's so iconic to that, to so much people. And I think I'm also coming to a point with fantasy where it's not just horse and sword, and that's such a limiting definition because it leaves out things like Spirited Away, Big Fish, dark fantasy, and things that I'm like, oh, I've actually liked that the entire time.
Totally. Dark Crystal. Like, there's a lot of these things as like, you know, especially the practical creature stuff as a kid.
Exactly.
I'm like, I just had to remember, like, no, you love this stuff as a kid, Cass. Like, you're actually a fan.
Well, what's your relationship with the genre in general?
Well, so I love, because I mean, when you think of like some of my favorite movies, first of all, obviously I am a huge fan of I am a huge fan of like those old 80s movies. I love comic books. I love all this stuff. So fantasy is really easy for me. And this is the part where I convince you that Breaking 1 and 2 are fantasy movies.
Oh yeah, Danielle made me watch Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo for the first time.
Never seen it.
It's the best version of the
You got
Save
2
It
hours
Community
this
Center.
afternoon to stick around.
I mean, I will guide anyone who wants to take this journey with me. I will do it. But because there are fantasy elements in both of those movies.
That's true, because the room spins around and then he break dances around it. And
then all of a sudden, the nurses know how to break dance. The pregnant mothers know how to break dance. I love
the belly knows how to break dance.
Exactly. The Last Dragon, one of my favorite movies. Everyone who knows me knows this. Show enough. And that's obviously a fantasy movie.
Yeah.
Big Trouble in Little China was another one that I super
Big
loved.
fantasy movie for me.
Totally.
And I didn't categorize it as that when John Carpenter has done so much fantasy.
Yep.
And in my head, he was just a straight up horror guy and he was just a straight up action guy. And what is Big Trouble if not just a hero's journey?
Right.
Totally.
And so many of these stories, I didn't give fantasy a fair shake. I'm sorry, everyone. I've
sorry.
recanted. Somebody asked if I haven't seen Pagemaster before. I also just saw that for the first time. Again, all of my Peter Jackson knowledge was like his very gross practical horror stuff, like Meet the Feebles and Bad Taste and
Wet puppets, as a friend of mine calls it.
Gross wet puppets.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, of course I should have liked fantasy the entire time. Practical effects are so ingrained in the history of fantasy. Mm-hmm. I love Never Ending Story, despite the fact that I was terrified of Trogdor or whatever his name is.
Oh, Trogdor.
I got something real wrong right now, didn't I?
Well, Trogdor is the Burninator from
the. So what's the name of the thing that he rides on?
Atreyu?
He goes, yeah! No, Atreyu is the guy on the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Valcor. Thank you.
That was one of my favorite movies as well.
Yeah.
Say my name. Love that movie.
Incredible. So I want to get to some of the picks that we have this week because I feel like I have a lot to say on them. And Cass, I want to start with you because all three of us have seen this movie, love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is just my pick this week is Conan the Barbarian. Okay, this is Arnold's first at bat, right? And
post
bodybuilder. He was. They actually cast him because they saw like early footage of Pumping Iron, and they were like, "We've got to get this. We've got to get this body into a movie." I don't blame them. Watching Pumping Iron, it is a feast for the eyes. And I can't imagine being like, watching him and being like, we've got to put this in something. And I know they were trying to adapt the comic book into a movie for a long time. And then so you have like arguably. I mean, to me, it's what I think of when I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know he's done so much. He's done Terminator, but that holding the sword over his head and you just like. The
looks like an actual Hercules.
Yeah. What is best in life?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's one of these things where it's so much better than you think it has a right to be, and that if you haven't seen it in a while, you may that's kind of like a hokey.
It's cheesier in your head.
Yes. Yeah. But it's actually like a really well done movie. Mm-hmm. The soundtrack, the score to the movie is like beautiful and haunting, and it like drives this whole movie, which has like 7 words in it.
Yep.
And it's like all emotions. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger watches his parents get absolutely murdered.
Yep.
His mother's beheaded. His father's killed by a pack of dogs. He's enslaved. The love of his life is killed. I mean, all by a James Earl Jones who plays a snake sorcerer man.
I didn't know he was that tall.
Yes.
Yeah, he's so tall. James Earl Jones is a giant man. Yeah.
Arnold is 6'2", and James Earl Jones is taller than Arnold in this movie.
Yeah.
Yes, and James Earl Jones's wig in this movie deserves its own sequel. A trilogy even. It's fantastic tale of revenge, and it's all done on like this backdrop. I think they shot it in Spain, and it's a gorgeous, beautiful movie that has like these amazing sort of like set pieces, and you just don't see movies like this anymore. They kept Arnold's dialogue down to a minimum because I think for his first movie, they're like, let's just look at him.
He's learning how to talk on screen.
Yeah.
I don't want to actually.
No,
so
please, actually.
No, I don't want to. Right, I don't want to. But I think his first movie was the Hercules movie, and they actually overdubbed him with someone else.
Because
so this is his
how
first
thick the Austrian
official.
Arnold gets to talk.
Yes.
Okay,
I think so.
great. Yeah, thank you for the correction.
I think I could be wrong. Chat will definitely correct me if I am.
In my head, it's Arnold's first big
But that's
splash
why
on
it's 'cause
screen,
it's- that's why.
Yes,
Yeah.
so technically, I'm sure if it's not remembered by me, then it's not true.
Also, quick thing, Snack Captain in chat, I absolutely would count Secret of NIMH as fantasy because it's so much like a story of, seeking out a thing, which I think Conan the Barbarian does a really good job of in terms of like something that you see in fantasy stories all the time, which is like tying a weapon as like an extension of the character of the hero.
Yes.
It's something that I'm now seeing in fantasy, and I really legitimately love. I wouldn't even call it a trope because that's one of the earliest types of storytelling we have.
Right.
Like you've got the Arthurian sword, you've got the axe for Gawain and the Green Knight, and Conan the Barbarian, same thing. It's that sword. It's that sword that he's got to get back from Thulsa Doom. Like,
yeah.
I gave it a second shot, and I'm so happy that I did.
Yeah, and it also, I almost picked this one, but I was like, I could just wrap it into this. It also gave us the spin-off, Red Sonja,
right,
which is one of my favorite movies. Brigitte Nielsen, also Arnold Schwarzenegger, not playing Conan.
He's not technically Conan in this movie. Yeah.
Which was like, as a kid, I was like, well, what happens if him and Conan run into each other?
Exactly.
Is it like a it's
Two
like
Spider-Mans?
twins. Yeah, two Spider-Mans.
But it's just two muscle guys being like, we're the same muscle guy.
But yeah, so that was, in fact, I classically, because I don't know why, I always see the sequel to these 80s movies first just because of when I was born. So I saw Red Sonja before I saw Conan. And so then I had to go back and I was confused because I thought that it was like the same character. Yeah. But that's another one where it is also, it's shot gorgeously. It's obviously on location. This one was a bit more dialogue heavy, but also by that point, people learned that Arnold will learn it. And no one cares that dude has an accent.
Yeah.
Like, we were all fully on board with Arnold at that point.
It's part of that charm at that point, like similar to like a Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yes.
To where it's like, we're not going to make you do a different accent because it's so a part of your persona and like why we bring you in for this kind of thing. Also, fun fact, tying into one of Cass's favorite adolescent childhood movies, John Goodman's character in The Big Lebowski is directly influenced by the director of Conan the Barbarian.
I love this for us.
He looks, if you look him up, specifically John Milius, if you look up John Milius, he is just that character from The Big Lebowski, and the Conan brothers took direct inspiration and influence and then just put him on John Goodman's skin. And so that's that guy in a different universe who also directed Conan the Barbarian.
I love that.
By the way, this movie's written by Oliver Stone.
Yeah. That was something that I frequently forget about as like one of the many fun facts behind it.
It changed a lot.
Yeah.
But from the script that he had, I believe Oliver Stone's script was like in a post-apocalyptic future.
Yeah.
Where like humanity had to like kind of restart, and it was like not anything close to what we got. But it's fun to say that Oliver Stone wrote Conan the Barbarian.
I would very much like to see that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love what Conan wound up being, but if someone wanted to do that version, I would also be down to watch that.
That's the remake that I would take. And I love that it became what it became because it looks so much like those Frank Frazetta covers that the novels had. Frank Frazetta, for those that don't know, is basically the godfather of, like, what you know fantasy illustration to be. A lot of the actual, like, characters in Star Wars, which I say is more fantasy than, like, a sci-fi space thing, like, specifically Darth Vader took influence from that Frank Frazetta art. And it's so much of what we think fantasy to look like now, which is 80s van art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say that lovingly.
In the best way.
Yeah. You only know it's good if it belongs on a van.
Exactly.
That's right.
Now, I'm really excited to get into your pick because this is one that I've only watched recently, and mutual friend of ours, Joe Starr, twisted my arm into watching it.
Yep.
And so what did you pick today? And by the way, both Danielle and Kassim's picks are streaming on Prime, Apple TV, Google. Those are rentals, and they're only between like $2.99 and $3.99.
Yep.
Yeah. I picked Ladyhawke. Ladyhawke is, I don't want to get too spoilery, but it's basically...
it's a very old movie, so if you haven't seen Ladyhawke, here's your rundown.
Essentially, this couple is cursed, and they can only hang out, like, right as, like, night is falling, so they can hang out, like, 1 hour a day, because that's, like, the only time when she's not a bird.
That's awesome.
Okay. It took me a second to remember that was a premise in Ladyhawke because I was so consumed by the Matthew Broderick of it all that I just remembered that it's essentially the plot of the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Yes.
Where they only get to hang out for like a specific amount of time. I watched it because Joe was like, there's Rutger Hauer in it.
There is Rutger Hauer, there's Michelle Pfeiffer, there's Matthew Broderick.
Why do you think the idea of star-crossed lovers is easier for people to take in like a fantasy movie than necessarily maybe something that's like billed as a romantic one?
I think it's because romance as a genre itself is so completely maligned by people that in order to just enjoy romance, like you got to trick it by making it something else.
Right.
Instead of just being
that's how you get a guy like me in.
Yeah.
That's how you get him into like a Princess Bride or like a something in which there's like a very romantic aspect to it.
Right, because we can't because even with like, a rom-com, it's got to be like, okay, but there's like comedy and there'll be like a wacky best friend character. Jack Black or somebody will come in and do something crazy. And so like that's a way to get people in. But just the romance genre is so known as being, because it's the same thing as with a lot of the things that people say about CW shows. Anything that is marketed for women or young women is immediately like, oh, well, this isn't serious.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing like it's what used to be comic book movies used to be where it's like, oh, this isn't serious because this is for young men.
And
this
it's like, serious. Blade is a hero.
Yeah, exactly. And so that has changed, obviously, now. I would like if we started to see a change with that kind of stuff as well. And there was starting to be that period, almost to the point where movies like The Hunger Games, they put too much emphasis on the romance, where it's like, no, this is about PTSD.
Right.
Like, this is not about will she, won't she with this bread dude or this, like, sword
brooding
boy.
guy. Like, who cares?
Exactly. This is really about, like, the politics. But, yeah, so I think that's what it is. It's just a way to sneak it in, because we all like that stuff.
Right.
If it's done well.
Even if I'll admit it or not, I love it.
Yeah.
But in reality, you're just kind of like, you have my heart, Ignacio.
Exactly.
Now, for Cass, who hasn't seen Ladyhawke, what's your elevator pitch for like, this is why this is a piece of fantasy that you should stream this week?
Honestly, it's just because it is. Do you like ridiculous things?
Absolutely.
Then that's it.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm looking at the poster here.
Yeah.
I see Richard Donner as a director.
Yep.
Effing love Goonies, like so many things that I'm on board with so far. I would easily watch this movie.
Yeah, no, it's mostly just because it's a very ridiculous movie. I think it's one of those ones where it is unlike with The Lord of the Rings, where it's like I can just sit down and enjoy it on my own and enjoy it at my own pace and take it in as I take it in. This is definitely like, I'm going to get a couple of friends together. We're going to eat some like prosciutto and popcorn, and we're gonna watch Ladyhawke, and we're gonna maybe have a cocktail if you have a cocktail, maybe have other things if you have other things, and we're gonna just riff while we watch this movie.
Yeah,
this is like a fun movie.
Well, speaking of a fun movie, I racked my brain trying to pick a fantasy thing that I feel like I can like speak to in terms of like something that I love, because there was a lot of things that I was like, I just started my relationship with this, so I'm not sure how I could approach it. And I was initially thinking Big Fish, but I didn't feel like crying today. So
keep it light, Vanessa.
Let's keep it light. Let's keep it like not like crying until I dry heave into a microphone.
For once.
Just for one time, even though I've like cried on easily 15 podcasts. Look them up. I'm a crier. Anyways, my pick for this week is something that I feel it's billed as comedy horror, but I think it is more fantasy than it is comedy horror in terms of where it stands. And that is Army of Darkness, which is streaming on Netflix. And it's one where every single rewatch, especially when you compare it to the first two Evil Dead movies, it is so much more fantasy. It is so much more fantasy tropes and fantasy trope lampooning than it is a horror movie for me.
It's a great pick.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not one that I would have thought of right away if you said fantasy, but like when you talk about it, it's like, oh yeah, this is absolutely a fantasy movie.
Stranger from a Strange Land, the weapon that is like the weapon of all weapons that the hero has is like an extension of himself, a literal extension of himself, because he's like got no mitt, and like the idea of like saving the princess and the magical elements of it, and like even when it's lampooning fantasy, it is just straight fantasy.
It manages to both be a commentary on the thing it's doing while also not doing it in a way that removes it or separates itself. It's not doing it in a way that says, I am better than this and therefore making fun of it. It says, I love this and I embrace this. Mm-hmm. But I'm commenting on it. But it's out of like love and affection. It's not out of like snark and, oh, look at this stupid thing.
Yeah. It was the movie that made me realize that horror and fantasy are cousins. They're distant cousins. They're things where anything can happen. They're things that primarily use practical effects. They're things that are primarily low budge. You can find a lot of like B-movie versions of doing like, because I mean, the 80s were rife with we want to make a Mike Myers. And so now here's like a billion versions of it, but like terrible, but I love them anyway. Mm-hmm. And Army of Darkness was one where it's like, every video store dork is the same guy, even if it's towards one genre, because we have core tenets that are like, I will put up with a little bit of ridiculous for something that goes spectacular. Like, I don't always, I think the reason why I wasn't as attached to it is because in my head, I was like, it's basically like history. It's like a biopic. Like, dragons are the same as like bloodletting in my head and not it's why I go to the movies, to be amazed and be somewhere else for a bit.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, it's that suspension of disbelief. That's why I have like these core, because obviously I have no problem with ridiculous things. Folks who know me know I love a lot of things that people would consider to be bad movies are some of my favorite movies. Yeah. Because they're sincere. And even if they're not able to pull off what they are trying to do, they are legitimately trying to do that.
It's earnest.
It's earnest. And I could use some earnest and sincerity. Like, I like when something isn't just commenting on itself and making fun of itself. And I enjoy the Marvel movies. But I will say that they've kind of hit that hammer a little bit of like we're making fun of the thing that we are. I like it in like a She-Hulk because it's more, that is who that character is.
Yeah.
But not in every movie necessarily, you know? But so... And then there's got to be spectacle. They have to try.
Yeah.
I love Masters of the Universe.
Oh my God, I love Masters of the Universe.
They tried, man. The story of Masters of the Universe. The story of Masters of the Universe, y'all. Speaking of Breakin' 1 and Breakin' 2, it's done by the same production company. Y'all get a chance to watch it. Literally, they're filming like the last scene. They couldn't pay the electric bill, so the lights like go off.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Wait, is that actually what it was? That's why that happens?
Yes.
That sounds like one of our shows.
Right?
Our AC went out yesterday.
And instead, it made us all delirious with heat. And it was...
Vanessa started slapping people with tortillas. That wasn't planned. She just started doing it.
I just became violent. And it was real hot and sweaty, and then I forgot math. There's something about spectacle that I really miss, that I feel like for a while we wanted to give actual explanations for a thing, and we weren't as down to suspend disbelief, and we're back there again.
Yeah.
And speaking of spectacle and suspending disbelief, let's talk a little bit about the movie that we picked this week. I hadn't seen it before. The little carrot on the stick for me to watch it, for somebody that like doesn't really like fantasy, is action. But we watched The Princess on Hulu, and I'm excited to hear both of your initial thoughts. Cass, would you like to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I had never heard of it. I had never heard any sort of buzz about it, so I went in fresh. I didn't even watch the trailer. And I know this has been said a little bit, but I found myself watching like an amazing action movie that just happened to be taking place in this tower in this castle. First reaction was, oh, this is like reverse Raid, like the Raid in reverse.
Except going downstairs. There's a little touch of blood sport in terms of just like, oh, you have secret martial arts training that we didn't know about.
Totally, yeah. It was really fun. It was, you know, not a movie that had like characters that I felt like I really cared a ton about, but I mean, I realized up front that this was like, oh, you're just going to enjoy the ass kicking that happens in this movie, and you enjoy a ton of movies that are like that, and this was no different. This was so fun. It was a lot of things I had never seen before. Love the idea of a princess that does her own rescuing. Really great. I love Dominic Cooper in Preacher. You know, everyone has mixed feelings about the show, but
I love Preacher.
Yeah, I liked really every action scene in this was different. It was fun. There was a sense of humor about it in a lot of moments. And as long as I wasn't expecting like to be moved in any way, I had a great time.
Yeah.
No, it's John Wick with swords.
Totally.
Oh, for those, I saw somebody ask again, and we are talking about The Princess on Hulu. And Danielle, I'll toss it back to you. You texted me at the beginning of the movie that it was called what?
Oh, God.
Lady Die Hard.
Lady Die Hard. That's right. Yeah, Lady Die Hard. Or Princess Die Hard, I think was what I said.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, Princess Die Hard. But yeah, so that's like it. First of all, it is nonstop action. This is not one that you can like put on in the background, because if so, you're just going to hear clank, 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 clank.
It's like, is that tennis or porn?
Exactly. You do have to be, but it is really engaging, and the fight sequences are so imaginative. These are some Mortal Kombat-ass deaths.
This was better than Mortal Kombat. This was a better Mortal Kombat movie than Mortal Kombat.
Absolutely.
That last one, yes.
Yeah.
It was a better one than the last Mortal Kombat movie, because we got more actual like fights that were happening, not like CG rendered villains and then a person in a room, like actual on-screen fighting. Some nice long, we got like 3 long juicy oneers that were real nice.
Olga Korolenko, she's Scorpion.
Oh, 100%. No, she's literally Scorpion.
She's just Scorpion. From the actual outfit to like the little piece of
a crazy
knife
whip.
at the end of the whip.
Y'all, I'm not even joking. These deaths are Mortal Kombat finishes. Like, you hear finish him, and then all of a sudden, or it feels like you do. This is also one that's not a lot of talking. It is really just 90 minutes of ass kicking.
Yeah.
And that is wonderful and amazing. And just how imaginative it is. Every single sequence is clearly trying to one-up itself. Also, she's... nope, I'm just going to... She's the whitest princess in history. I don't mean that the way that it sounds.
She damped the whole time.
That dress... I'm sorry. First of all, there is nothing I love more than when a gown becomes a battle dress, like in the middle. Like,
Ready or Not did that, which I love.
Classic Buffy stuff. Yeah. Like, I am so into that. And then,
they worked it into the movie, and like, the way it evolves into the dress each scene. Yeah, it's really it's a great.
And it is, again, like, this is not like, this movie is not about the plot. It is about watching these action sequences. So this is like not spoilsies, but. Yeah, and also, man, that whatever that material is made of gets drier than anything I've ever seen.
That's right. It's a wicking. It's a John Wicking fabric.
Yeah. And again, for those asking in chat, the Wet Princess is on Hulu. Don't look up Wet Princess. It's just the princess. It's a John Wicking fabric. Actually, that villain that had the helmet with the spikes on it, that was like really big, and she had a hard time bringing him down. And I really love the idea of like, obviously she's not strong enough to like, because she's small lady, huge dude. She's not strong enough to like bring him down with fists, so she used like the pointy end of it to like smash into his brain.
Yeah.
That villain looks exactly like a boss character in Golden Axe. The whole time I just kept pointing and I was like, Golden Axe, but it's from somewhere and I can't remember exactly where.
I'll put it on the list. I've never seen.
Oh, it's a video game. He's a little sprite.
The side scroller?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
yeah. He looks like a
No,
Golden Axe villain.
I'm back.
So this movie was actually directed by a director named Ladyhawke, who also did a movie called Fury. The woman that trained her in her secret princess kung fu training in this, which also very fantasy in terms of like someone from far away teaches you a fighting style. I'm now learning watching fantasy where it's like it's a guy from somewhere else, and they're good at being warriors and stuff. I'm only now just getting into Game of Thrones, y'all. But that actress is Veronica No, and she was in an incredible movie called Fury. And if you haven't seen it, Fury is on Netflix. It's Furie, and it's the princess times 30 because Veronica No does have a lot of action movie experience. The premise is just taken. She's a woman whose child is taken from her into like organ harvesting trafficking, and she chases them on foot and motorcycle and train and breaks a lot of necks.
I love it.
Real good. And you can see some of that applied here as it's like coming to American filmmaking stuff where it's like, I don't care about the characters, and the dialogue is very like, I'm here to watch butt kicking.
And if that is your deal, and sometimes it is mine, then this is, everyone knows I watch wrestling. This is, it's just bloody wrestling. It was amazing. And speaking of, just a quick diversion, they're making one of those with Allison Janney.
What?
Like a Taken style with Alice and Janney.
Really?
I know. I lost my entire mind. I know.
Hands
It's
went
the
cold.
Bob Odenkirk inverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I really dug Nobody for
It was
like
awesome.
a feather in
let
the
Alice and
cap of his
Janney
career.
have hers then. Yeah.
Yeah, give me that. I'm enjoying certain actors, Joey King being one of them, who did 90% of the
amazing.
on-screen work in this movie, wanting to actually fight in a movie again. Like, I get the point of a body double, but at the same time, we didn't need 30 cuts to get Liam Neeson over a fence and take.
I can never get over that. It's the funniest thing. If you haven't seen that, go look that up. It's just Liam Neeson fence Taken 3.
Yeah, Taken 3.
Just yeah.
It's a lot to get him over that fence, but you get folks like Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron and like people that are like, I am down to do some of the choreo so that it looks better when we sell it. And like for some people, if action isn't your thing, there's not a ton of dialogue that matters in this.
Yeah.
No, half of it is her saying, "I'm the princess."
I'm the princess.
Like that's
I'm the princess.
Yeah, that's half of the dialogue.
Watch your language. I'm the princess. Like it's a lot of that. I cannot tell you half the characters' names because again, they're not that important. And the plot is literally like princess up in castle. Princess wants to go downstairs in the castle. That's the whole movie. And so for some people, the action might not be enough for them to hang on. I am one of those people. I watched a movie called Broken Path. It only exists on YouTube. You cannot find it anywhere for rental. I can't find a physical of it. It was directed by a former director of like the Power Rangers fight choreography. The dialogue is dog shit. The part where they speak, bad. It is almost 2 hours of straight punching. Like when they talk, it's bad, but they rarely do. That's how much I'm down.
Yeah.
For something to not be much of anything other than a really long
Also,
fight
can
scene.
you look this up? Because I believe that the stunt coordinator on this also worked on one of the Power Rangers movies. But I could be
Very likely. A lot of those tokusatsu guys pretty much end up working everywhere. But would you say the princess is absolutely an action movie? It's Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's Bloodsport.
Yeah.
Would you say that it did capture any of like some of the common like tropes or storytelling devices that are used in fantasy as well? Or is it more just action?
To me, I thought it was more action. Like, I in my fantasy movies, I love a creature. You know, I love a thing. I love either a practical effect. If it's not that, just something mystical, fun. This was pretty straightforward. I don't think there was any room for any of that.
No, I don't even know what you would do with something like that. But there were dungeons. Which obviously they didn't have the dragons, but they had the dungeons.
That's what there was a moat. There was a tower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know.
Okay, he was the fight choreographer for some stuff on Resident Evil and Metal Gear Rising, and so it looks like a lot of like direct-to-video nonsense, which is like where a lot of these
and because that is what this movie is.
End up ending up.
It's
but,
fantastic.
I do agree with you though. Now that I'm like getting more into the fantasy genre, I did miss those things that I used to maybe dismiss a little bit and unfairly so. Because I found myself actually wanting a dragon or an elf or something.
Right.
Because like obviously a lot of the fantasy is in some of the fight scenes in it of themselves. Because like while they were very well done and thinking about the fact that she's getting beat up, she's getting tired, there's like some things that she can and can't do. There is a level of suspension of disbelief.
Oh yeah. Again, Mortal Kombat deaths.
It's Mortal Kombat deaths. But I wanted some of that magic, and that was something that I used to dismiss. And I think I'm slowly but surely turning into a fantasy fan.
I kind of love that. That's
Look at us. We're growing up.
Oh.
Give us our creatures. Our magic, our dragons, you know?
Yeah, give me some wet puppets.
Some wet puppets, please.
What would you say was like some of the high points in The Princess and maybe some of the points where you're just like, this might be why I don't watch this again in the near future?
So I've already listed a bunch of them. There was a fantastic scene where she is trying to hide. The whole movie is her trying to hide. She's trying to hide, and so she hides in like a bath, and she has to like hold her breath while this huge, very slow dude, and it's just the way that they ratchet up the tension because you know that she's in there and she can't breathe, and everything he's doing feels as though it's obviously the direction, but it feels like he is deliberately taking his time and being slow and
checking himself out in the mirror.
Yeah,
a little flex. He even gives a little peck bounce.
Yeah, he does a little bit of the Terry Crews.
The long piss goodnight.
There it is. There it is.
That's what we're going to call this episode. No, we're not. Someone will yell at me.
But yeah, so that scene did such a great job of just heightening that tension and making you feel like, dude, you got to go. Why are you taking so long? You got to go. You got to go. And not in a way where I'm like, movie, why are you doing this to me? But in a way where I'm like mad at that man.
Yeah. It was a very tense scene, and it had that humor in it. I really liked the kitchen fight.
Oh, that's so good.
So fun. Had the whip in there. It
that
had
great team up between her and her trainer.
Yeah, it was really great. I mean, as far as the low point, anytime they were to cut back to Dominic Cooper and his whole, like, whatever he's doing, like, his motivation seemed like he was playing it like it was very important that this was going on, but, like...
It didn't seem that important.
No, And, like, every time they cut to her dad, he looked kind of worried, but... It's like,
he didn't look worried enough for, like, my daughter is trapped in a castle, my kingdom is under siege, this man might marry my child daughter if the other one doesn't. And he's very much just kind of like... No, but like tradition is important. Like a lot of the stuff with her family, I was just like, okay, let's get back to the scene.
I get it. I see what you're doing. Feminism. I'm down. I love it. I love the feminism. I see what you're doing, but I want to get back to the hitting now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it gave us it was a good sort of break to reset and get back to the hitting. It was good. And his haircut was like oddly distracting to me.
Dominic Cooper or the dad?
Dominic Cooper. Yeah. Well, the dad had some weird Team America beard.
Oh my goodness! Yes,
seemed
he did
unnatural to me.
Like a weird little pat. Yeah. I agree. Like that was something where I could have done without a lot of that. Dominic Cooper, I think it feels like he knew what movie this was, and so he was purposefully trying to ham it up. But there's not enough there for him to chew on, for him to do as much chewing as he's doing.
Yes.
It's like, no, you're eating air, babe.
Yeah, he's the only one with that intensity at any moment.
He's the only one that actually has him and Joey King are the only ones operating under high stakes. Because even her trainers are both kind of like, we'll get to this eventually.
Yeah, and he's trying to be the villain so much that I was like, just make him roll his R's. Like, I see what you're doing. Like, princess, like, just go all in. If you're going
a little bit of that voice, of that bravado, of like that fantasy guy voice. I will say though, this movie makes me want more action movies from Joey King.
Yeah, she was great.
I now want to watch Bullet Train to see what she did in that.
It kind of would make me maybe rent Bullet Train.
Yeah. Like it's the 2% thing more that has me maybe putting my pin in to rent that one next.
Yeah.
You've seen it. I feel like you have.
No, I haven't seen it yet. I have not seen Bullet Train yet. I probably will at some point. Like when it comes out, I'll watch it and maybe we'll do it. Who knows? But with her, that's definitely... Like, good for you, girl, because you know what you're doing, and you're carving yourself a path.
Yeah.
You're going to get in one of the Marvels.
Yes.
You're going to get you in a Marvel. Good for you.
Yeah, I had thought
Cash that check.
I was like, oh, she would be great in a
Yes.
Marvel. I wonder if this is like her sort of like hour-and-a-half audition to show Marvel like...
Kind of feel like it.
You know?
Well, she previously was one of the little kids on The Conjuring. She was also the daughter in The Act.
Yes.
And she was in a series of movies on Netflix that are not for me. They're for someone. I'm not it, called The Kissing Booth.
That was a nice way to say that. Yeah. It's not for you.
It's a really nice way to say... They're for someone out there, I'm sure.
Not a Guerrero target audience.
Not a Guerrero target audience. But for the princess, still trying to figure out that rating system. So let's go 1 out of 10. I'm trying to think of something in the movie that we can use as like, 1 out of 10 wet dresses.
Ooh. I would say that this is definitely... I'd say this is 6 wet dresses.
Yeah,
this is about a 6 wet dresses. I do think that if you're looking for a really fun movie that you will not have to think, but you will have to pay attention to, because again, this isn't one where you can go and like do the dishes and just like hear what's happening on the background because you will know nothing. You do need to be visually engaged. But yeah, no, it's not like a 10 out of 10 wet dresses, but it's definitely a 6 out of 10 wet dresses.
Yeah, as soon as you said 6 wet dresses, that was the number I had in my head. I'll say 6.1 just to be fun, And the scale is different because if we're judging this as like a Raid-esque action movie, then I'm bumping it up to like a 7.5.
Yes.
But if we all got to give every movie, it's sort of like we got to rate it the same
for what it is.
And this, so a 6 wet dresses is and a 6.1 is where we're at, I think here.
Yeah, I think. One of the things that I especially want to do for full screen is get away from this like conversation about movies in which something is either the best thing you've ever seen or garbage, because I feel like that's getting away from one of my favorite things that I experienced as a kid, which was watching something that was pretty good and then that's it.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. I'm happy that I watched it.
Yeah.
It can happen, and it happens pretty frequently.
And it's wild because we'll allow TV to do that.
TV does that all the time.
We'll allow TV to be pretty good.
We hang in there with TV that's just okay.
Yeah. I've hung in there for TV that's awful. Hemlock Grove had me hostage the entire time.
Wait, was that the Tree movie?
No, it was the Eli Roth werewolf vampire Netflix show in which the first season I was like, all right, I get a cool werewolf transformation in the first episode, and then nonsense. Terrible nonsense for the entire time. And I found myself actively hating that show towards the end. Yet I stuck on.
Yeah.
This chat is filled with people who finished the Resident Evil Netflix series. So like you guys know what it's like to hang in there. You know?
Sometimes it's just a weekday and you're just like, this was just fine for what it was, which is why I'm giving this also a 6 wet dresses, in which like I love the action, so the action boosted it up a lot for me. Yes. I do wish that it was a little bit more fantasy. It was great that they had the budget to make it look like fantasy, but I wanted... It's so funny because I used to chastise fantasy for having what felt like a strict, rigid set of rules for something that was supposed to not have any rules. Right. And now I realize that it's not rules. It's universes, created, thought out universes with languages and economies and systems that are
it's world building.
It's world building that are interesting to me. And because I viewed it as rules, I was like, okay, in that case, that's boring because you can't subvert them. And now I'm like, oh no, it's just having a universe. And so now that it's not there, I miss it.
Yeah.
So
because this was just like, I don't know anything about this kingdom. I don't know why you have to like save the kingdom. I don't know any of these people. Like I know nothing about.
Don't remember anything that happened.
Yeah, it's basically just evil lord who is evil and sadistic wants to take over, which is kind of I'm gonna get in trouble. It's kind of my problem with the House of the Dragon. Stop doing the black thing where you call it House of Dragons. Yeah. House of the Dragon.
Yeah, Hot D.
Hot D, thank you. Is because right now I want to get to the fireworks factory. And I think it is because there is so much of that world building we already know, but when you look at the first original Game of Thrones, you are just thrown into the deep end and you're discovering things about all of these different places. And now it's like, okay, well, now I'm just hanging out with the silver-haired family who, I'm sorry, you will not make me forget that they're all related.
Totally. It's a great point. We do a show called Keeping Up with the Targaryens that we just started, and that's exactly the point we made last episode, where they're going to have to like get that laser focus dispersed a little bit because it is like being trapped in a crazy white-haired family's house. It's all Thanksgiving.
Exactly. I don't want to watch Thanksgiving with dragons.
I feel like I'm going to ask you both a kind of tough question. So I'm only now getting into Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot that I already know because like whenever something is that big of a cultural phenomenon, you're going to learn everything through osmosis, whether you're into it or not. Knowing that we know that Game of Thrones ends the way that it ends, why should I hang on?
It is all of the fantasy stuff that you love. It's all of the world building stuff that you love. That's exactly right. They just kind of plopped, like the end is not, it's not as super satisfying. But it's like, it's going out and it's enjoying a great meal with friends. And then like maybe at the end of it, someone like knocks water on the last bit of steak that you have, and it's like, well, I can't eat that now.
I was going to eat that piece.
I was going to eat that piece. But you enjoyed the rest of it.
Yeah.
The rest of it was good.
Yeah.
But now it's like, well, I can't because there's Diet Coke all over it. I'm not going to eat this Coke steak.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. It is world building. Like when the theme song on episode 2 came on, what happened to you?
It did something for me.
It did something.
It It tickled like that little like, ooh.
Yeah, we're back, and we get this thing every week that's kind of like the thing that I really loved before. Yeah. And I don't know, since you haven't watched Game of Thrones, obviously get that out of the way, and then see how you feel about it. And then if you get like a little itch and you're like, oh man, I missed that weekly little bump, that little theme song, or watching brothers and sisters kiss, whatever it is.
I watch anime.
Yeah, there you go. Then you can come back and maybe start watching a Hot D. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Hot D.
But that is what I'm like. I'm giving it a couple of episodes before I decide whether or not it's something. I'll probably still watch it because we're all going to be watching it. But it's going to be one of those ones where I'm like, it's 6 out of 10 wet dresses.
I'm excited. I think the thing that I'm the most excited for is watching Gwendolyn Christie actually get stuff to do in a piece of media. Because as much as there's things that I really liked about the new Star Wars series, what a waste of a Gwendolyn Christie.
Yo, you're gonna love.
She is amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God.
She might as well have been an extra in Star Wars. Like they didn't really give her much to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get any tall girl.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just get a She-Hulk for the scenario. So I'm very excited that we got to talk the princess. I'm going to pivot into a segment that we did on the first episode, and I'm going to keep going throughout, and it's called Let's Get Physical, in which I beg you to make precious space in your home for a piece of physical media. Because I don't collect physical media as much as I used to, because obviously space is limited.
No one does.
No one does. Streaming is a thing. Mm-hmm. But I think people are thinking about it a little bit more, especially in light of like the stuff happening with HBO and shows being pulled. I'm so sad that I'm not going to get more close enough.
And even like with music and people having to go back and like take things out and remove things and that
original Jackass, original Beavis and Butthead,
collecting records. Yeah, people are doing it. Yeah.
And there's things that end up getting changed in the edit. Like a lot of Simpsons jokes don't quite track because of things that were taken out.
Yes.
From it being on Disney Plus. But also we don't get the extras. We don't get the commentary tracks. We don't get the behind the scenes. So this week I was initially going to bring in a piece of physical media that I own, and it was the Green Knight 4K. And I highly recommend that if you like the Green Knight, you check it out because it is a beautiful print of it. But I'm actually going to shout out a different thing, and I actually posted a clip of this in the Full Screen Attack Discord, and that is Vinegar Syndrome's Righting Wrongs release. It's currently on sale for $37.99. If you don't know what Righting Wrongs is, here's my elevator pitch. Here's why it's great. It stars Yuan Biao and Cynthia Rothrock. Yuan Biao went to the Peking School of Martial Arts with Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung. He has coordinated all of the best pieces of martial arts that have ever existed. Cynthia Rothrock is what you get when you have someone that looks like a Midwestern mom, but they move like Jackie Chan.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. She is an incredibly trained martial artist. There are several scenes in this in which she's just like, I'm in lady high-waisted mom pants. And then she throws 4 dudes over a table and then uses that table as a weapon with just her legs. And she has an incredible fight scene with another woman who quite literally reminds me of the princess in that she turns her belt into like a scorpion-ass little weapon. Righting Wrongs is fantastic. Similar to the princess, the words don't matter. It's the fact that it's some of the best action that's ever existed. And the nice thing about this is that it not only includes pieces of commentary and like little mini docs about the actual movie, but it actually includes a separate feature-length documentary called The Best of Martial Arts Film, and it has interviews with Cynthia Rothrock, Yuan Biao, Karen Shepard from the movies, but also Jackie Chan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bruce Lee, and a bunch more. And it's hosted by John Saxon, who's a dude that's in like every martial arts and every horror movie, but you don't recognize him because he just gets his ass kicked.
That's a twofer.
It's a twofer. It has so many extras, a gorgeous 40-page bound book with it. If you haven't seen it before, this is a great way to see it, because I usually can only find it the way I can find most things that I like on YouTube, grainy, with some guys like Pepe the Frog logo in the corner, and then like a million ads in, and then my computer has a virus.
Yeah.
So please.
It's like sped up or slowed down by like a half point to like so that it passes.
So everybody's kind of talking like this, so they don't like meet a copyright restriction the entire time. So please buy Righting Wrongs, and thank you so much to the both of you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Before I go, is there a fantasy movie that you feel like I need to check out now that I'm finally going through my backlog?
Oh, okay. So you have seen Neverending Story.
Yes.
You have seen Ladyhawke.
I have seen Ladyhawke.
You've seen Red Sonja?
No.
You have to watch Red Sonja.
Red Sonja?
Red Sonja's good. Yeah. You've seen Conan the Destroyer?
I've seen The Barbarian. The Destroyer is the Grace Jones one, yes?
Yes.
I love that one.
Yes. Yeah. So Red Sonja would be the
next
one. Yeah, the next one.
Because the only thing I know about Brigitte Nielsen is I watched the show where she did Flavor
I know.
Flav.
Yeah, just don't expect her to act, really. She's just there.
But she looks
cool, big time.
Oh, and then Willow is going to be the other one that I check out. Somebody
Willow's
said
great.
Willow in chat, and I've completely missed that. And yes, Pan's Labyrinth is absolutely fantasy to whoever said that in the chat.
Yes, Guillermo del Toro. That was my first Guillermo del Toro experience. Pan's Labyrinth, fantastic creature. I mean, it's just like a masterclass in creatures and a real fun story to boot.
Yeah, I think Guillermo del Toro, make room in your heart for Crimson Peak. I know there's a lot of brother-sister kissing, but you did that
We're okay with
Game
it.
of Thrones.
We're okay with it.
You could do it again for Crimson Peak. Just don't frame it as like a horror thing. Just frame it as like gothic fantasy or just like a bunch of like really pale people in high-collared things see ghosts.
Great.
It's great.
Done.
So next week, in honor of Clerks 3 coming out, because that's on its way, very excited to check that out. We're going to be talking sequels and threequels and the best of a addition to the franchise. And because we are still currently recording episodes and we're going to put them out to an audio format soon so you can listen to them as a podcast, I'm still picking movies until we start taking them from the Discord and from our guests. And this is a long preamble way of me saying that next week I'm going to make you and whoever our guests are watch Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Wow.
You would do that to us, huh?
I would do that to you, and I do it with love. I am an apologist for that movie. I understand why some people may not love it.
We accept your challenge.
But hopefully I can maybe convert some people or figure out why they don't exactly love that thing.
Also, I have to say, speaking of Clerks and speaking of physical media, Clerks the Animated Series is a fantastic piece of physical media because...
Really?
Yes, because not only... I really enjoyed that cartoon. I thought that it was great. But the commentary on that is as good as the show itself.
Oh, I love
it
when
is.
that happens.
It is just a lot of Kevin Smith behind the scenes stuff. A lot of him being real bitter about Family Guy.
Oh my God!
That's so good. Yeah, he really knows how to like riff.
Yeah.
Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
That must be good.
That's an Arnold commentary track too. Like the Arnold commentary tracks for Conan. Danielle, where can we find you?
So watch Honest Trailers. I help make them, and we
Those
do.
are tremendous, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We do Honest Trailer commentaries every Tuesday on the Fandom channel, where we go through the trailer and then kind of talk about. It's just an excuse to talk about movies and then talk a little bit about our process and what we were thinking while we were writing it. And those are Tuesdays, usually at 11. If you like wrestling, I have a wrestling podcast on Maximum Fun called Tights and Fights. We've had people on, like we've had Austin Creed on. We've had RJ
we
City
know
on.
that guy.
Yeah. But yeah, but mostly it's just like me and my co-hosts, Hal Lublin and Lindsay Kelk, just dishing about wrestling. And if I'm doing anything else, you can find me on Twitter. If you like TTRPGs, I do a bunch of those.
Oh yeah, and you're very good at them.
Thank you.
And Cass, anything you want to plug for the week? Other than being the king of
got
content?
Yep, we got Fresh Ink. She-Hulk episode 3 comes out tomorrow. Friday, and we do Keeping Up with the Targaryens at the top of every week. So if you want to get your Game of Thrones fix in, watch me, B-Comp, probably Vanessa. Who knows? We'll be there.
Thank you. And if you've enjoyed Full Screen Attack, or if you've got some fantastic suggestions for what we can do with the future of the show, as we are still in our baby stages walking with our baby feet, please let us know on the Reddit, on the Discord. We even have an actual Full Screen Attack Discord. And we are getting those posters from that poster contest printed up. Y'all did an amazing job. I adored it. And then I have my own podcast, of course, Kicking and Screaming, that is now bi-weekly, where we combine horror movies and martial arts movies, because of course that's what I do with my free time. And I love you so much. Thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other. Bye.
Bye. Goo goo gaga.
Goo goo gaga. I hope we're still live.